AIPAC has already started going after Jamaal Bowman. So he goes on the Alex Wagner show, and Alex Wagner, if you don't know, is on MSNBC. She's the one who replaced 75% of the time when Rachel Maddow, she only appears like once every so often or something like that. So anyway, Alex Wagner plays the ad, and then she has Jamaal Bowman on for a one-on-one. And again, it appears maybe she's on his side to be saying, I'm with the, the great superhero progressives against the big bad AIPAC. But let's listen. Let me know where you want it to stop.
1,400 Israelis slaughtered by Hamas, women raped, babies beheaded, over 200 hostages. But Jamaal Bowman was one of just 10 votes in Congress against condemning Hamas's terrorism. Tell Jamaal Bowman to stand with Israel.
That was a new ad now running in the District of New York Congressman, Democrat Jamaal Bowman. The ad is from the political arm of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, as it is more commonly known. And it is not the first time that AIPAC has tried to take on progressive members of Congress or even take on Jamaal Bowman himself. But it is the first time that AIPAC's mission is part of a larger battle within the Democratic Party over the Israel-Hamas war. And that fight is most evident in the debate between pro-Israel Democrats and the Squad. Congressman Bowman is already facing a potential challenge from Westchester County Executive George Latimer, who says he will make a final decision after returning from a solidarity trip to Israel. Other Squad members, including Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Summer Lee, and Rashida Tlaib, are all expected to face potential primary challengers as well. As Michelle Goldberg writes in the New York Times, a series of ugly primary campaigns fought over Israel will only widen the progressive political divide. But with horror at conditions in Gaza and Jewish fear both ratcheting up, an intra-party clash over the future of the Squad now looks inevitable. Joining me now is New York Congressman, Democrat Jamaal Bowman. Congressman, thank you for coming here to talk about. I know it's a tricky topic, it's a difficult topic, but talk to me a little bit about what this moment has been like as you sort of navigate a constituency really more pronounced in its division than many other members of Congress.
Yeah, it's been a...
So I think that means what she just said, Keaton, and I think maybe you alluded to it. His constituency has a large Jewish base, so I guess she's assuming that they could be pro-Israel. But then he also has a large progressive base,
right?
Which could mean they are pro-Palestinian or free Palestinian. So is he one of the New York reps that sort of is presented with this clash of constituents, in your opinion, or that you know of?
Yes. Yeah. For exactly what she said. And that's what I was, as you said, that's what I was getting at earlier. His district has a lot of Jewish voters and a lot of progressive voters as well. And so this is really going to come down to turnout. This is going to be a pretty hard fought race, I think. And so it's going to come down to who can, mobilize their base, who can pound the pavement harder. And this is where the fact that the Squad has been so fucking useless could come back to bite them in the ass. Because if you're Jamaal Bowman, you're going to have a hell of a hard time rallying the grassroots to have your back. Because what have you done for them?
Right. That's what I was going to be getting to. But before I answer what you just said there, I just wanted to bring this up before I forget. They want Richie Torres level support. I think that's a good sort of marker.
Absolutely. They have that from Richie Torres, obviously. They have that from Hakeem Jeffries as well. They had that from Elliot Engel, who, don't forget, was the guy who Jamaal Bowman successfully primaried. He was the previous rep from that district, extremely pro-Israel congressman. So it is possible they can pick him off. He's going to have to go back to that progressive base that put him there over Elliot Engel in 2020 and convince them to have his back again. I think that's going to be a very tough sell, because if his base are anything like us, we've been burned too many times. You think I would knock on one fucking door for this asshole? No way.
So let's talk about it now, because that was sort of the point of the segment at the end, that do they think the left is going to galvanize behind them? You've already jumped to it, Keaton, so let's talk about it. Do they think, and let's go to Kit, do they think the left is going to galvanize behind them after breaking a strike, after lying about breaking a strike, after so many sort of disappointments, after voting for the Iron Dome, after saying, I would vote for it, like AOC have recently said, I will vote for the Iron Dome now for all things, bless you. So, Kit, tell us what you think on that.
Well, first of all, there is no way the left is going to galvanize around the squad or the remnants of the Justice Democrats. This story's already months old, but we've heard reports about how the Justice Democrats are letting go of people. All the people who put in their time, effort, money, and energy into the squad, we have got a net result of 0. Same thing with the DSA, who was supposed to be this outside group. They voted to reign to be a wing of the Democratic Party. Any institution that talked about reforming the Democratic Party, any institution that talked about putting in progressives or people with, the policy of fighting for a better future and putting forth progressive policies, we've got nothing. All we heard is see these politicians compromise. And we're being told that they have to keep their powder dry for the big push, the big fight that never happened. And then all the sycophants that carried water for the squad, like Fat Tony, Cenk Uygur, or Sammy Boy Cedar, or anybody else like Kyle Kalinske, the dime store M&M. All these people who said, we got to wait, hold on, we got to give them enough breathing space so these squad members can have enough political capital, and then we're going to get them, and then we're going to do it. It's like you're seeing a team that has barely won the World Series or the Super Bowl, and you think, oh yeah, eventually they're going to get there. Like, no, it doesn't. You have to wait for a very, very, very long time. It wasn't too long ago where old hagbag Nancy Pelosi fought for Medicare for all. So this whole idea that the left is going to galvanize, we have been beaten and abused enough. And so many people who at least held on to the audacity of hope that maybe the squad would come around, people have wisened up to the fact that they are in a violent, domestic, abusive relationship. All right.
Kid, you do stand up. I swear you do stand up.
I'm not a comedian. I'm not a comedian. Don't put that evil on me.
But Keaton, it sounds the way you talk, Kit, sounds very similar to a New Jersey person from New Jersey, or somebody from Boston. I don't know if I'm just mixing up.
No.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Very working class. It's
I
very
can see.
similar.
Yeah, it has
to
that salt of the earth kind of quality. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Thank you. I got to work on the material, and maybe if Jimmy Dore is able to get the Chicago theater, I could do an opening for him. Maybe.
Right
just not today. Just not today. Hold on. Just not today.
Keaton, were you going to chime in? We can go back to the video. Were you going to chime in?
I was good for now.
Okay, so let's finish off this video where he's pretty much pleading and begging, trying to create sort of a victim mentality, I guess, in certain constituencies. But let's listen.
A traumatic moment. It's been a painful moment. It's been a moment filled with grief and suffering by my Jewish constituents as well as my Muslim constituents. And so it's been multi-layered. You have the behavior of the Israeli government, which needs to be critiqued very strongly, in my belief. You have the impact of that critique on the Jewish community, both locally in my district and globally. You have Muslims who have felt erased in this whole conversation and even dehumanized as well when you hear some of the rhetoric coming from Israeli officials towards Palestinians, referring to them as animals. So it's been multi-layered, multifaceted, filled with very strong emotion. And what I've tried to do is just absorb it, sort of stand in the middle of it, learn from it.
Yeah, that's what you're elected to do, to absorb it and stand in the middle of it.
Wait a minute. This is the same guy who admitted on air that he confused a fire alarm opening for a door opener. Like, come on, man. Seriously.
I'm absorbing it and standing in the middle of it. Yeah, that's what you were elected to do, right? That sounds like real fiery rhetoric. It sounds like a man on a mission. just people feel strongly on both sides, and I just kind of absorb all those opinions and stand somewhere in the middle. What a leader. Profile and courage.
And understand the reason he feels comfortable with saying things like critique the government but not the people, or you also hear people say Netanyahu's bad, like Morning Joe. They'll critique Netanyahu but not Israel because he has a terrible approval rating right now. So he is open for critiques. But let's get back to what they're saying here. She does ask a couple of good follow-ups here.
Accordingly, in a way that meets the needs of a diverse constituency, as you mentioned.
I was struck. Michelle Goldberg, who was just our guest,
basically saying, I'm sorry, can you pause it 1 second? He's basically saying, I took no position because half of my constituents feel one way and half of my constituents feel the other. And so I think the moral thing to do is just to absorb those opinions and not take a side. That's exactly what he said.
I nearly forgot this too. It wasn't too long ago where good friend, I'm pretty sure he comments on your shows too. Roger Meadows, he actually confronted Jamaal Bowman, about his voting stance and how he's not helping out working class citizens. You know what Jamaal Bowman had the audacity to say to Roger Meadows? I played it on my show. I gotta find that clip now. Roger, if you're watching, send me that clip again. But Jamaal Bowman says to Roger, like, "Hey man, why are you coming up to me like this? Man, this isn't appropriate. You shouldn't be talking to me in this manner." Almost like, how dare you, Roger Meadows, a voting constituent in the great state of New York, talk to your congressional representative and demand more out of me? Like, what the hell? This guy, he doesn't give a damn about the people of New York City. He doesn't give a damn about anyone that he represents. And because now he shook up AIPAC, like he's in a rock and a hard place because he has nowhere to go. You ran as a progressive, you ran as a Justice Democrat, but when push came to shove, when you had to challenge power, you're going to bend over backwards and start kissing your own wazoo. This guy stands for nothing.
Spot on. Let's get back to the video. Here we go.
Followed your campaign as you tried to navigate meetings with constituents over on this topic. And she quotes one woman who was involved, I believe, with your campaign at one point. Diana Lovett said polarization over the congressman was tearing apart local Democrats. I love him personally. He was lovely and he's amazing. And he was the same warm and open-hearted person that he was today. This is at the event that you had. But she had come to believe that their views on the Middle East are irreconcilable.
Oh, God.
Oh, irreconcilable.
When you hear that, what is your reaction to that?
Oh, thank you for saying I have a big heart.
Well, she said that.
No, thank you to her for saying that. I don't think they're irreconcilable. I think for a very long time, we've been having one conversation.
You know what? It is irreconcilable, and that's what we've been saying. We're on the other side, saying this is irreconcilable, but from a different point of view. You can't either give the money or give the gun to the person that's committing, to a deranged person that's committing acts of cruelty and crimes, and then be like, oh, after the act of cruelty has been done, I'm helping the victim. That somehow evens this out. That's not the case. So in my opinion, you have to stop funding the psychopath in order for you to be able to say you're truly on the side of the person who is being victimized. But either of you wanted to chime in, Keaton or Kit here, or I can continue to play.
Well, no, that's 100% right. It is irreconcilable, which means you have to pick a side, and you have to hope that your side has the numbers to beat the other side, which he does have those numbers if he can mobilize those voters. His problem is it's going to be hard for him to mobilize those voters because he's already stabbed them in the back so many times. Yeah. If he didn't have the numbers on his side, he wouldn't have won his primary in 2020. The Congressional Black Caucus endorsed Eliot Engel. A lot of establishment power was behind Eliot Engel in that primary. The reason he won is because the voters of his district are mostly on his side, but because he's such a coward, he's not willing to take their side. And so it is an open question as to whether or not they will have his back. But I am very curious how he tries to James Bond his way out of this. As he tries to wiggle his way out of this question.
So Keaton, what you're saying is he got into power on the backs of progressives.
Yes.
Turned his back on them, on those same progressives, on several different topics, including Israel, voting for the Iron Dome.
Right.
And now that he needs those constituents that put him into power, he has to answer for the stuff he turned his back on them for.
Exactly. If he repped them, he'd have no problem. Because if he repped them, he'd have no problem. He has the numbers on his side. Yes, there are a lot of Zionists in Westchester and even the Bronx, although not as many in the Bronx as there used to be. But Yonkers, Westchester County, yeah, sure. But there aren't enough to beat him in a primary if he were a solid rep for his base. His problem is he has not been a solid rep for his base, and so it's doubtful whether or not his base is going to show up to have his back once AIPAC pours all this money into trying to get rid of him. It's going to become an enthusiasm question, really, is basically my main point.
Yeah,
because
it's going to come down to which crop of voters are more mobilized. Are the Zionists who are angry at him for not being 100% pro-Israel? Are they going to be more motivated to come out and get rid of him than his progressive base is going to be motivated to come out and have his back?
So great. So not only that, it's going to be a matter of fear propaganda and fear porn again, because, oh, look, here's Jamaal Bowman. So progressives, if you want to have another progressive and not have some sort of corporate Democrat, you better turn out to vote for Jamaal Bowman, who will still 99% of the time vote against your interests. Or do you want to support this Democrat who's a corporatist who will vote 100% time against your interests? So it's an either or, lesser of two evils in a Democratic primary race. Again, what's the point of running in the Democratic Party if you're going to be compromised and screwed over? It was a wasteful experiment. It was a waste of time to try and reform it with Justice Democrats and brand new Congress and our revolution. And I'm kind of like at this point relieved that people are seeing this and that there is a lack of enthusiasm for Democrats because they never follow through. What does it look like when a Democratic politician follows through with its promises? I mean, when's the last time we can remember that the quote unquote progressives in Washington, D.C. followed through with anything for us? Do we have a list, or is it just nothing but Democratic talking points? Like what?
I haven't seen that list.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's try to finish this up to keep this right at an hour of our first hour. So let's finish this up here.
Conversation without the other. We have been saying for so long we are pro-Israel, pro-Israel's right to exist, pro-Israel's right to defend itself and self-determination. But we haven't been saying the same thing about Palestinians. And so what I've been trying to communicate, and this is all, again, based on my learning. I work very closely with Americans for Peace Now, J Street, If Not Now, Jewish Voices for Peace, and many organizations. Israel's safety and security is directly connected to Palestinian freedom, safety, and security. So we've been using a lot of rhetoric around a two-state solution for decades.
To lose their argument.
And when I went there, I saw that we are nowhere near a two-state solution. Myself, as a sitting member of Congress, could not walk through certain checkpoints in the West Bank because I wasn't Jewish. So we're using rhetoric, but our policies aren't matching the rhetoric, and our policies aren't matching the urgency of the moment. October 7th was a horrible day, horrific day, and Hamas must be condemned, and we must get the hostages back, absolutely. But condemnation is only step one. How are we going to do the work to actually get to a state for Palestinians and do the work here to bring communities together around education and engagement so we could deal with anti-Semitism in a real way, Islamophobia in a real way, racism, sexism, and all the isms that continue to plague us in a real way? We haven't done it here, and we're not doing it globally.
Yeah, when you say we haven't done it here, I got to bring in President Biden, because there are new numbers that NBC has out about the president's support among young people and Black voters. And I believe, and I don't have the numbers with me here, but I believe it is 70% of voters 18 to 35 do not agree with the way this president has handled the situation, the war in Gaza. Talk to me about what do you attribute that to? Is that the way? Is that the sort of one-sidedness, as you call it, in this conversation? And then I want to talk to you about the way this intersects with the Black experience. First, in terms of young voters, what does the president need to do differently?
Well, it's going to be tough, and it is tough.
He can't do anything.
Voters are already upset.
He can't do anything. Biden can't do anything to get back young voters. If we said that he was going to abandon progressives in 2020, I said that he was going to do it, and I was automatically vilified. Jimmy Dore was vilified. Hell, it caused my channel 4 of my videos. It's like half of my reason why I was censored 8 times on YouTube is because we were challenging the Biden-Harris administration. So all this BS of, oh, how's Biden going to get back voters? He can't. He can't. He never followed through with any of his promises. We have been proven correct again about Biden and the Democrats. So good luck, squad. How are you going to get us to come back to you? You made it abundantly clear that you don't need us. So why should we come back to you? You told us how you feel. You told us the truth. So good luck. Good luck with Biden. That's your old dog. That's the one you wanted. AOC and Bernie were quick to endorse him. So no one's going to go back to him. Why
and that answer he gave on the Israel issue was a loser. It was a loser with both camps, right? I'm just playing horse race here. The Zionists in his district do not want to hear him say the security of Israel depends on the freedom of the Palestinian people. Zionists don't agree with that. They don't agree with that. If they did agree with that, they wouldn't have locked the Palestinian people in 2 open-air concentration camps. So there were really 3, actually. But they obviously don't feel that way. So it's a loser with them. And then I'm sorry, the progressive base, the pro-Palestinian base, a base that I would call myself a part of if I were in his district. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in hearing about the security concerns of a state that is committing a genocide right now. Like, we don't want to hear the issue framed that way. Okay? Israel tragically lost 1,200 people on October 7th. Since then, they have paid back in blood more than 10 times the amount of Palestinians, more than half of whom women and children. I don't want to hear about their security concerns right now. That's just not, I mean, their security concerns pale in comparison to the security concerns of babies and children and mothers in Gaza. And so that both sidesing is just not going to fly with his progressive base either. So that's a complete loser answer. He's just fence sitting. And by fence sitting, he's making himself a sitting duck because you're not going to mobilize your base that way. You are not going to inspire the voters who you need to come out for you with that kind of talk. And New York City has been a hotbed of pro-Palestinian protests. I mean, there are massive protests in New York City multiple times per week. And not all of them live in his particular district, but a lot of them do. And so they're not fucking around on this issue. They're not going to come out and vote for this mealy-mouthed nonsense.
That's who he needs to galvanize. If he understood, being in the moral position here, being in a humane position is what's going to galvanize the energy you're going to need to fight AIPAC. You're not going to galvanize. You don't have the ability to galvanize enough energy. I'm going to say it this way. There's not enough energy in the progressive Democratic movement alone to galvanize enough energy to fight AIPAC, i.e. Nina Turner. You saw that already. You're not better than Nina Turner. You don't have the same footprint as Nina Turner. You can't outdo what AIPAC did to Nina Turner. Like, that's just not happening. So if you were to fall on the side of humanity and righteousness and the side of history here and side with Palestinians, you would be able to galvanize that energy from the street. Hey guys, AIPAC is trying to take me out because I am here with you guys marching and fighting for Palestinians. And all my votes show that. He doesn't have the ability to do that. But that's what would be galvanizing enough for him to beat AIPAC. So
right, yeah. And when I just want to add one more thing. Like, when I say people don't want to hear about the security concerns for Israel. I'm not implying that the pro-Palestinian base wants Israelis hurt. I'm just saying that seems like both sidesing it at a time when the violence has been so one-sided, right? When the carnage has been so one-sided. To hear him come up here and say, well, it's actually in Israel's best interest to free the Palestinians. Most people are like, well, first of all, the Israelis don't believe that. If they did, they wouldn't be mistreating the Palestinians, number one. And number two, for you to be emphasizing the priorities of the Israeli state at a time when they should be sanctioned. They should be sanctioned. They should be paying a price for what they're doing right now as a murderous fascist state that is, just marauding its way through an imprisoned population right now. For you to be saying, well, hey, what would be good for you is if you would be nicer. No.
Can we also point out the fact, and look, I'm pretty sure you guys have done phenomenal work already on this, but anyone want to talk about or reveal to Jamaal Bowman how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a very close and personal relationship with Hamas and why he's never really done anything with it? Does anyone want to talk about the fact of why before October 7th, good old Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a lot of domestic issues impacting him to where his own government wanted him out? Does anyone want to talk about the fact that how do you not see this haymaker coming? You got these huge concrete walls, these watchtowers, barbed wire fences, surveillance drones, cameras, best intel service around, and you don't see this 1-2 punch coming your way on October 7th. How'd you let your guard down? Well, maybe people get lazy, but I don't know. Just something just doesn't add up. Something just seems too suspicious to me. So, and not to mention, again, the Israeli government had a close working relationship with Hamas. No one wants to talk about the financial dealings. And, by the way, maybe this kind of slipped under everyone's radar, but it wasn't too long ago when, it was revealed that there were some weapons from this place called Ukraine somehow were in the hands of the Hamas when they were doing the attack. Does anyone want to talk about that anymore? No, probably not, because, that would upset somebody like Jamaal Bowman and the Democrats because, that puts them in an uncomfortable spot because they're Democrats and they have to put on that little fancy mask saying, it's both sides. It's both sides always.
Right on. Let's listen.
It's over a variety of things, including how he's handled the climate issue. He's done some good things, and it's kind of playing a yo-yo with him. He does some good things, and they come in, and then he does something else that pushes them away. And the response to the Israel-Gaza conflict, again, the one-sidedness of it has really turned young people away and the BIPOC community away as well. And it's not just the president, it's Congress for the most part. I mean, I'm in a small minority calling for a ceasefire. I mean, the majority, it's growing a little bit. It started as like 6 or 8, but now it's up to 30, which is really good. But the president hasn't done that. And young people, they want peace. They want justice. They want a diplomatic response to what's going on. They want us to spend more money on education and jobs and climate and keeping people out of prison and healthcare than we spend on war. And this president at the moment is not showing the capacity to do that. And the party and the Congress, not just the party, all of Congress isn't showing the capacity to do that. So I think it's a combination of all these things that's turning young people off, and people of color have been turned off for a while because of lack of comprehensive immigration reform, if you're talking about the Latino community, and no conversation at all about reparations if you're talking about the Black community. But we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on weapons and war, but we can't even have a conversation about reparations. Those are the things that are happening.
Do you think his position on Israel and Gaza, the Israel war with Hamas, has anything to do with his? I think he's lost about 15% of the Black vote in this latest NBC polling. Do you think that has anything to do with how he's talked about this conflict in particular? I mean, I know Ta-Nehisi Coates, the great writer on race in America, saw a lot of similarities in terms of the experience of what is happening with Palestinians, the lack of mobility, the lack of representation, and the Black experience in America. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, even before I went to the West Bank on my own, not on my own, but with J Street, I spoke to Israeli and Palestinian scholars over the phone just to learn more about it. And one of them, I forget his name, told me that we're at the civil rights era moment here in the West Bank. This is like Jim Crow. And when I heard Ta-Nehisi say that, I felt what he was saying, because although I didn't live during the Jim Crow South, I read about it. And when I went there, it felt that way. It felt suffocating. It felt stifling. It felt immobile. And again, for me as a sitting member of Congress who has voted in support of the Iron Dome, right? So I felt what he was talking about.
It's so crazy, and I'm going to end it there. It's so crazy that he doesn't see what he just said as a contradiction. That's so astonishing to me.
Because he's a professional liar.
He doesn't see that. But what do you think about this last part that he's speaking to about Biden losing support over this issue? I mean, he kind of still tap danced sort of around it. So I'll say my part and I'll pass it to you. I'll speak on the part about the Black experience, and I've said this many times. Nick and I have said this. This is really why, like, you see us go so hard, because what I'm doing is trying to be the ally that I wish some of my ancestors had at the time. So that's what I'm trying to be very vocal about it, show anger, not just like I'm speaking about it. Like, I need to show that this is really upsetting because it is. I'm not at all acting at all. I'm just saying that's something you do want to display. But what say you about this last part of the interview, about what he's saying about Palestine, about what he's saying about the vote share that he's losing over some of these issues and these communities that he needs to win? What say you, both of you?
Well, because there is rightfully such passion and anger about this, it is going to be extremely difficult. I would even say impossible for Biden to get back enough young voters to have a chance to win. I mean, 14,000 people have been murdered. Like, that's done. That's not that cannot be undone. Even if he plays every card right from here on out, which of course he's not going to. Right. So I think that is settled. I think that ship has sailed. In regards to this whole thing, well, yeah, and I say this as someone who voted for the Iron Dome. What he's really articulating is the two-state solution, which is why so many have now come to realize how absurd this sort of two-state solution discourse has become. Because you can't have a two-state solution when one state is intent on cannibalizing the other state and has made very clear their intention to do so over the past 75 years. You know, one thing you don't have in place right now is the infrastructure for a Palestinian state. You don't have the infrastructure for that. Israel controls all of that infrastructure. They control agriculture. They control imports. They control the electricity. They control the water. And if they are not willing to grant some autonomy to these occupied territories, then there is no two-state solution to be talked about. And this fence sitting that Bowman is engaging in is basically the stance of the two-state solution people, which is, yeah, Israel can exist in its current form and the Palestinians can have a state. Well, that's obviously impossible. I mean, if this does not prove that is impossible, what does? And that's why when you talk that way, you sound fucking ridiculous.
It's hard to follow up with that, but I'm just going to say this. What you just heard, everything come out from Jamaal Bowman's mouth is nothing but a word salad. He didn't believe in a goddamn thing he said there. He just said it to make himself look good and to make himself look presentable so that people will be suckering in to vote for him for another term into office. It's all about maintaining one's political career and having all the wonderful benefits. He's just lying his way through. He doesn't believe in a goddamn thing he says. Okay, and he's a guy who says, I voted for the Iron Dome. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. You want a parade? You want some flowers for that? Okay, you voted for the Iron Dome, and now, you're shocked that 14,000 people are dead? Well, 14,000 people are dead, and guess what? The dead stay dead. They don't come back. It's not like a Marvel movie where you can reverse what Thanos did. Once they're gone, they're gone. They can't come back. And, you know, when Bassem Youssef was on Piers Morgan's show, right, you know, he just made it very clear and simple. Like, how many Hamas fighters did we create with the loss at a time? 11,000 dead? All what this conflict did is laid a foundation for the next war 10 years down the road. And God forbid, you, Keaton, you, Compton, myself, or anybody else in independent media, we're having this conversation again 10 years down the road, like, hey, we saw this coming. This was going to happen. So people like Jamaal Bowman, we can't rely on them to be truthful. All these politicians have got to go. And the one true step of freedom is not voting Democrat and not voting Republican. It's actually building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C.